The Daily Telegraph. Nuke kids on the block. It's an exclusive by Joe Hildebrand. Australia must develop a nuclear industry for the sake of national security and to protect ourselves against China or any other foreign threat, the nation's top blue-collar union has declared. The Australian Workers' Union said the deal to purchase nuclear submarines from the US and UK meant Australia must have a nuclear industry or our sovereignty would be at risk. Well, considering you're up there in the heart of our military base up in the NT, Matt, what do you make of this? Do you think nuclear is a conversation we need to be having?
Oh, absolutely. And I think any serious conversation about, net zero by 2050 has to include nuclear. I mean, the reality is, Jenna, for all of the talk about renewables and all of the hype around renewables, you still need reliable, dispatchable power. And if we're going to reduce those emissions, nuclear has to be an option that we consider, because the alternative is either coal or gas. Now, gas is probably a better alternative than coal, but gas still, creates emissions. And so, do we want to have this discussion about net zero? And do we want it to be a serious grown-up discussion? Well, absolutely we do, and I think nuclear has to be a serious part of that discussion. Now, it's interesting that the Australian Workers' Union is backing a nuclear industry in Australia, but the bipartisan position of the coalition and the Labor Party is still an anti-nuclear one. So, I mean, we need to have the discussion. There are plenty of people in the federal parliament now who are willing to have it, and I think it's time that discussion be had.
Yeah, absolutely. Lock them in party room this weekend and they're not allowed to come out of their room until they have an actual policy about all of this stuff. I definitely agree with you. Over to the Herald Sun, and things just keep going from bad to bloody worse in Melbourne. Baby ICU alarm. COVID case fears in RCH, neonatal intensive care. Urgent rapid testing for all parents. 29 of the most vulnerable patients in the state have been exposed to a COVID unknowingly infected patient visited the Royal Children's Hospital neonatal intensive care unit. This makes my heart hurt so much, Matt. What is going on with that health system over there?
Oh, look, it's just been a horrible road for Victoria for 18 months, and it continues. I think what this shows, from my point of view, though, Jenna, is the importance of everyone getting vaccinated, because those kids in the Royal Children's Hospital are the ones who can't get vaccinated, certainly not at the moment anyway, certainly if they're under 12 years old, right? And that's why everyone else needs to get vaccinated. It's not, whether you think you're going to travel overseas or not, or whether you think, it's going to help you or not, doesn't really matter. It's about helping your fellow Australian and making sure that this sort of thing doesn't happen, that making sure that the spread of the virus is controlled and that it doesn't end up in our hospitals, and even worse in our kids' hospitals, and even worse in the neonatal intensive care unit of the Royal Children's Hospital, because that, is an absolute potential disaster. It's a really sad story. And, if there's one message I could send to anyone watching tonight, it's to, if you're not already vaccinated, go out and get the jab.